My father said it was too risky when I asked him for 40,000 euros to start my tech company. He then applied for a 380,000 euro loan for Nicholas's BMW and his failed dreams. Now he wants me to sell my house to save them. I asked them to leave. People often believe that family means kindness and fair treatment, but sometimes it is also the place where the deepest pain is born. I used to think my family was perfect and full of love until I discovered that they had simply cast me aside. This is what happened to me, an older brother forgotten because my parents blindly trusted my younger brother. Please stay until the end. I would really like to know your opinion. My name is Alejandro. I'm 30 years old, and I have my own tech company. It's not a big corporation, but it allows me to live well and have everything I need. I have 2 houses, one in which I live and another that I rent to someone else. I'm not rich enough to spend without thinking, but I earn enough not to worry. Now Nicholas, my younger brother, is in our house. He has always been the center of attention. He is intelligent, he has a silver tongue, and he knows how to make others believe in his big plans, but he is not practical. Nicholas always jumps from one big dream to the next. One day it's a tech startup, then a luxury restaurant, after that a film studio. His goals sound incredible, but he never finishes them. He always finds someone or something to blame, like not having enough money or that nobody wants to invest in his ideas. Then, a year ago, I found out something that chilled me to the bone. My parents had taken out a mortgage on their house to give Nicholas a large amount of money to finance another one of his projects. That's when everything began to fall apart. My parents are the kind of people who firmly believe that family should always help each other, no matter what. They are not bad people, but they have a big flaw. They always believe Nicholas no matter what. My father, Javier, is serious and quiet. He has always been the decision maker in the house. He has never really respected what I have built, perhaps because I didn't follow the path he had imagined for me. For him, true success is something big and brilliant, not the small tech company that I built with my own effort. My mother, Rosa, is softer, more emotional, but she lets her feelings guide her decisions. For her, Nicholas is the one who still needs help. I'm the one who is already doing well and doesn't need support. She always tells me, "You are strong, you can handle everything on your own." But Nicholas needs his family. We don't have tons of money, but we have always managed. My father had a small business, and my mother worked with numbers as an accountant. Their jobs gave us a stable life. In addition, my grandfather, Don Manuel, left a good inheritance, the result of smart investments in properties. That money, if used carefully, would have been enough to support my parents for life. When I was little, I didn't think they had favorites. I believed they loved Nicholas as much as me. We had birthday parties together. If I received a toy, he did too. On vacations, we both had new clothes. Everything seemed fair and balanced. But when Nicholas started school, things began to change. He did very well, got the best grades, got along with all the teachers, they praised him, other children admired him. My parents were so proud of him that little by little they stopped noticing that I was there too. It wasn't noticeable in the toys or the food, but in the big things that marked our future. Nicholas wanted to learn French. They paid for very expensive classes without hesitation. He wanted to go to an elite camp. They said yes. He wanted to play the piano. They bought him one and paid for a private teacher. But me, they never offered me that kind of support. By the time I got to high school, it was already evident. Nicholas said he wanted to study at a prestigious private school. They paid the entire tuition without thinking. I also asked to go to a better school, but my mother just said, "Public schools are fine, son, there's no need to waste money." I wasn't naive, I knew exactly what was happening. They thought that investing in Nicholas would bring great results and that I was already fine as I was, so there was no need to help me. They believed that investing in Nicholas would bring great rewards over time. They thought I was already doing well and didn't need help, so they simply didn't try. When I was 17, I discovered that I loved working with computers. I wanted to sign up for an online course to learn how to create software. It didn't cost much, just a small fraction of what they had already paid for Nicholas's classes. But when I mentioned it, my father shook his head and said, "Can't you learn to program on your own? There's no reason to spend money on that." I was already used to doing things on my own, so I didn't say anything. I spent the whole summer studying free material on the internet, learning every line of code and every step on my own. No teachers, no money from home, just me. After going through situations like that many times, I finally understood something that hurt. My parents had never really believed in me. For them, Nicholas was the only one worth investing money and care in. I was simply the son they thought didn't need anything. I never blamed Nicholas, it wasn't his fault, but from that day on, I stopped expecting my parents to ever help me. When I finished university, I worked for 2 full years, saving every euro I could. By the time I turned 25, I had saved enough to open a small technology company. But to make it grow, I needed more capital, about 40,000 euros. I thought about it a lot before deciding to ask my parents for help. I don't like asking for favors. I didn't want free money. I was willing to treat it as a loan and even sign a contract to return it all. Still, I kept thinking, if Nicholas had been helped many times, why couldn't I ask just once? So, for the first time, I asked them for a large amount of money. I remember the day clearly. I sat in front of them and presented my business idea seriously and respectfully. I had done all my homework, found good partners, and was fully prepared to take responsibility for every euro. But just a few minutes later, my father interrupted me and said, "No, it's too risky, it's not safe." I looked at him, waiting for him to explain more, but he didn't. He didn't care about my plans, nor did he ask about the effort I had put in. For him, everything I did was a bad decision. But if Nicholas tried something, it was a dream that deserved support. I didn't argue, I smiled sadly and nodded. It didn't surprise me, but it still made me feel disappointed. Even though I didn't get that 40,000 euros, I didn't stop. I used my savings to start the company anyway. That meant growing more slowly than I expected, but I made careful decisions, managed my money well, and took every opportunity to improve. At first we were just a small team, a few people working from home. I worked nonstop, sometimes to total exhaustion, but I never gave up. Nobody believed in me, but I believed in myself, and in the end I succeeded. When I turned 29, my company was doing well. Not only was I living stably, I had also bought 2 houses, one where I lived and another that I rented out. Both were in good neighborhoods and gave me security for the future. Everything I have I earned myself, without help from my parents, without help from anyone. But I still kept wondering how much money my parents had spent on Nicholas. When Nicholas was 23 years old, he opened his own European-style cafe. My mother and father gave him more than 70,000 euros to help him. He chose a place right in the center of Madrid, filled it with elegant tables and chairs, and hired staff as if it were a luxury restaurant. But after only 8 months, the cafe closed. Nicholas had no idea how to manage money or how to run a business, and most importantly, he never took the blame for what went wrong. And what did my parents say when the cafe failed? "The economy is very difficult now. Our dear son deserves another chance." Another chance, of course. Then, when he turned 25, he tried his luck in the fashion world. Another 40,000 euros disappeared to open a small, exclusive clothing store. The store didn't last even half a year before closing. The reason? Nicholas knew nothing about fashion. But that didn't stop him. Nicholas had always believed that he was a genius who had not yet been discovered. I thought that would be the last time my parents would help him, but no, they still believed in him. It was then that I finally saw the truth. My parents loved me because I wasn't a risk. They told me no because they never really believed I deserved their trust. And then a year ago, something happened that shook me inside. I was in the old town of Valencia running a small errand. On the way back, I thought about stopping by to see my parents. I didn't tell them I was coming. I thought I'd just stop by to say hello for a moment. But as soon as I parked in front of the house, something caught my attention. A brand new BMW was in the driveway. I stared. My parents had never been big spenders. Where did that car come from? The door opened and my mother came out with a huge smile. She said happily, "Nicholas just bought himself a new car. Isn't it incredible?" I stood still, completely shocked. A BMW? With what money? Nicholas had failed again and again. There was no way he could afford something so expensive. I entered the house and tried to stay calm, but then I saw a pile of bank papers on the table. I picked them up and started reading, my chest tightening. It was a mortgage document, a loan of 380,000 euros. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The loan covered 80% of the value of the house. My parents had mortgaged their home. But for what? Why borrow so much money? I clenched the papers in my hands, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you use the house to get this loan?" I asked softly. My father frowned. My mother wouldn't look at me. "We just took out a small loan to help Nicholas," she said softly, as if it were normal. I let out a dry laugh. A small loan. I looked at the figure again. 380,000 euros. That was 80% of the value of their house. That's small? And the money that grandfather Don Manuel left? I asked. My mother paused and let out a slow sigh. "That money is gone," she said. "Gone," I repeated, pronouncing each syllable as if it hurt. I looked at the BMW in the driveway again. I knew the truth now. "You spent it on Nicholas's car, didn't you?" They said nothing. My mother bit her lip. My father gave me a cold look as if I had said something offensive. "He needed that car," my father said curtly. "In business, it matters how others see you. Who would take you seriously if you arrive with any car?" I smiled, not because it was funny, but because the situation was so painfully absurd. You've spent all your savings, wasted the inheritance, bought a car, and now you've used your house to get more money for another one of Nicholas's plans? Do you really not see how dangerous this is? If Nicholas fails again, you won't even have a place to live. Their faces changed immediately. My mother looked at me angrily, and my father's voice became hard and sharp. "You're jealous of your brother, aren't you?" "Jealous. Jealous," I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. "You want him to fail so you can feel superior?" I stood still. "Do you really think I'm jealous of someone who has thrown this family's money away again and has never taken any blame?" They couldn't see the truth. I took a deep breath and tried to stay calm, but then I remembered something and turned to my father. "When I was 25, I asked you for a 40,000 euro loan to launch my company. Do you remember? You refused instantly. You said it was too risky. And now you're willing to put the house on the line for Nicholas? Has he ever succeeded, even once? I'm really disappointed in both of you." My father slammed his glass on the table with a crash. "That was years ago, and you're doing well now," he said firmly. "But Nicholas needs support. Stop using the past to attack this family." Then he stood up abruptly and pointed to the door. "Leave. If you're just going to complain, then don't come back." I looked at them for a few seconds, then left the loan documents on the table, nodded, and walked out. As I drove home, I picked up the phone and called Nicholas. Even though I was angry with our parents, I still wanted to try to prevent him from making another big mistake. "Nicholas, please listen to me. You're going down the wrong path," I said. "Mom and Dad have risked everything for you. If you fail again, they'll lose everything. Don't you see?" But instead of listening to me, Nicholas let out a fake, mocking laugh. "You always do the same thing, Alejandro. You're jealous, you're afraid I'll be more successful than you, and now you're trying to stop me." I was silent. "Do you really think that?" I asked quietly. "What else could it be?" He replied scornfully. "You already have everything, a company, houses, money, and now that I finally have an opportunity, you can't stand it. You're being selfish." I didn't speak for a few seconds, then I shook my head. "If that's what you think, then there's nothing more to say." I hung up the call. This time, I really gave up. A week passed without any contact, and suddenly my parents called me to invite me to dinner. I didn't expect it, especially so soon after the argument. But no matter what, they are still my family, so I agreed to go. When I arrived, I saw that Nicholas was already there. The atmosphere in the house was different, less tense than before. My parents looked at me, and it was Javier who spoke first. Alejandro, we're sorry. We said things that weren't right last time. Rosa nodded, her voice lower than usual. Nicholas wants to apologize too. I looked at Nicholas. He nodded slightly and rubbed the back of his neck. Yes, I was pretty angry that day. I shouldn't have said what I said. I was really surprised. My parents had never apologized to me before, and Nicholas had never admitted to being wrong. For a moment, I thought that maybe they finally understood. But less than a minute later, I discovered the real reason for that dinner. My father cleared his throat slightly and began to speak slowly. Alejandro, you have 2 properties, one where you live and another that you rent. I immediately felt something was wrong. Why are you talking about that? I asked, my voice growing colder. My mother intervened in a calm voice, as if she were talking about something completely normal. Nicholas is entering the real estate world. He needs to project a good image. A suitable place to live would help him appear trustworthy. If you could give him one of your houses, it would be a great help for his future. I was shocked. So that was the reason. The apologies had only been a strategy to get to this absurd request. Without hesitation, I looked directly at them and replied, no. My mother blinked as if she couldn't believe what I had just said. What do you mean no, Alejandro? She asked, still in a soft tone, but with growing anxiety. I mean, I'm not going to give Nicholas my property. I'm not stupid. The atmosphere changed instantly. My father put his chopsticks on the table with a thud, his gaze hardened. You have 2 places to live. Nicholas just needs one opportunity. He's your brother. I let out a bitter laugh. And now you expect me to give him my house just so he can appear successful? How many times have you given him money even though he's never accomplished anything? My father's tone became firmer. He hasn't failed, he just hasn't had the right moment yet. And you already have everything. Can't you support him just this once? I laughed again, but this time it sounded dry, empty. Have everything? You never gave me anything, not even when I asked you for 40,000 euros to build my company. You told me no without thinking, and now you think I should give Nicholas a whole house? I'm not crazy. My mother's hand began to tremble. My father slammed his fist on the table, making the water glasses shake. You're selfish, like everyone else. You're envious of your own brother. You're afraid he'll be more successful than you. That's what you think? I stood up quickly, my eyes full of disappointment. No, I'm simply not stupid. Silence filled the room. I turned to Nicholas. He was still silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. I knew deep down that if I had agreed to give him that house, he would have taken it immediately. He wouldn't have thought twice. He had no problem keeping what didn't belong to him. I shook my head, feeling more sick than angry. You can keep trusting him if you want. I won't. Without another word, I walked out of the house I once called home. Behind me, I heard Javier's voice yell furiously, if you leave now, don't ever come back. I didn't stop. This time, I truly left them behind. And just as I imagined, a few months later, Nicholas failed again. My parents didn't tell me, neither did Nicholas. I found out from someone I knew who worked in the real estate sector. Alejandro, did you hear that Nicholas's business went under? I was silent, clenching my phone tightly. What happened? I asked, although I already guessed. He chose poorly, bought when prices were high and sold when they were low. He lost everything. The money from the mortgage your parents took out vanished. I closed my eyes and sighed. I wasn't surprised. It was only a matter of time. But there was more. And the BMW? I asked, although I already had a bad feeling. He sold it a couple of months ago, my friend said. He needed money to continue the business, but it didn't help him. I let out a dull laugh, without joy. My parents had risked everything for Nicholas. They were sure he was going to succeed, But now there was no money, no business, no car. Soon they would have no roof over their heads either. What did I feel at that moment? Neither pride nor joy, just emptiness. I had warned them, I had tried to make them see, but they ignored me. And I already knew what would come next. They would look for me. Just as I imagined, a few hours after I heard about the failure of Nicholas's business, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The first call was from my mother. I didn't answer. Then another, and dozens more. The messages arrived nonstop. Alejandro, please answer. We need you. Don't leave us alone. I saw all the messages, but I didn't reply. I knew perfectly well what they wanted. From the moment they put the house up as collateral, I knew this would happen. They weren't writing to apologize. They wanted money. The next morning, I left the house to go to work. I stopped short. Standing in front of my door were my parents and Nicholas. They looked worse than ever. Nicholas had lost his usual air of superiority. His face was thin, tired, without expensive clothes, without the attitude of a proud businessman. He looked like someone who had lost everything. My mother seemed to have been crying for hours. My father, once strong and proud, now looked much older. Stress had aged him quickly. They had nothing left. Javier cleared his throat and spoke in a harsh, weak voice. Alejandro, we were wrong. I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame. My gaze was cold. Now you understand? They didn't argue, they didn't yell, they didn't call me selfish or jealous, because now they needed me. Rosa began to speak, her voice trembling. Son, we have no options. Please help us. I sighed and stopped her. I have no money. They froze. But my father responded quickly, as if he already had the speech prepared. You could sell your company or one of your houses. If we manage to pay what we owe and save the house we've always had, we can start over. I looked at him for a moment and let out a laugh, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did they really think I was going to sell the company I had built just to save them? The same people who denied me the 40,000 euros when I wanted to start my dream, and now they were asking me to give up everything I had created because of them? They excluded me, they told me no, and now they wanted me to lose everything because of their fault. I had nothing left to give. I straightened up, walked to the entrance, and opened the door wide. Then I pointed outside. Out! Out of my house. No one moved. Nicholas opened his mouth to speak, but I stopped him with a look. I told you, Nicholas. I'm not naive. I had nothing more to say. A month later, the bank took my parents' old house. They had to pack up and leave, homeless. They became homeless. It didn't surprise me. I knew this would happen from the day they signed that loan. At first they stayed with people they knew, but no one could keep them for long. Later, they moved to cheap pensions, dark, damp, and overcrowded. When they ran out of money, they ended up in shelters, queuing for food. These were the same parents who once had a nice house and enough savings to live comfortably. Now they were part of that group that has lost everything. And Nicholas, the man who used to call himself an entrepreneur, the one who drove a BMW, was now ruined. He walked around looking for work, but nobody wanted to hire someone who had failed again and again. Even though I kept telling myself that I didn't care anymore, I kept watching them from afar in silence. I didn't contact them, but I knew perfectly well how they were surviving. And even though I tried not to feel anything, I couldn't completely turn away. For 3 months, I let them experience what it means to lose everything. I wanted them to feel the consequences of what they had chosen. But deep down, the fact of being their son prevented me from looking the other way forever. No matter how unfairly they had treated me, no matter how much they had pushed me aside, they were still my parents. About a month ago, I made a decision. I was going to see them. They looked truly defeated. Javier, who once walked with pride, lowered his head when I entered. Rosa looked exhausted. Her eyes had shadows from sleepless nights, and her hair was grayer than I remembered. Nicholas was sitting to one side. He no longer had that confidence of before. He wasn't the man who spoke proudly of big dreams and ambitious plans. No one said anything for a long time. In the end, I was the one who spoke. I'm going to rent you a small place. It will be enough to live near the city, but only for a year. My mother raised her head. Her face showed a little hope, but I hadn't finished yet. During that year, Nicholas has to find a job, and after those 12 months, you'll be on your own. I won't give any more help. My father didn't answer. My mother didn't plead. Both knew they had no right to ask me for anything more. Nicholas opened his mouth, perhaps to complain, perhaps to ask for something, but for the first time, Javier raised his hand and stopped him. He looked at me for a moment, and then nodded slowly. That was the first time I saw him acknowledge that he had made mistakes. You're probably wondering why I only offered help for a year. Well, here's the reason. Nicholas still lives with them, and I'm not going to let him continue depending on me for years. He's gotten used to having others solve his problems, but this time, if he wants a real life, he'll have to earn it himself. If my parents can support themselves after that year, it would be best. If they can't, I'll make Nicholas leave. After that, I'll only pay the rent to make sure my parents don't end up on the street, but Nicholas will no longer be my responsibility. That's my final decision.